Amelie, money is missing from the register. And something tells me, it's your doing. The loud voice of the manager shattered the evening silence of the empty restaurant hall. The 25-year-old waitress flinched as if someone had poured cold water over her. She had just finished wiping the last tables after closing. Only a few staff members remained, a couple of waiters. Amelie turned toward the voice. At the front desk stood Monsieur Laurent, the restaurant manager, stern-faced and flushed. In his hands, he held an open cash drawer. "Excuse me, are you accusing me?" she asked quietly, feeling her knees weaken. "Exactly," he barked. "You heard me right. Where is the money from the register?" Amelie shook her head in disbelief. "That's impossible. I counted everything when I balanced the account," she tried to explain. "Impossible, you say? Then where's the money?" the manager mocked, slamming the drawer shut. "The fact is, there's a shortage, and you'll be the one to answer for it." By now Claire, the shift administrator, a woman in her 30s with a cold, sharp look, had stepped closer. She crossed her arms. "Monsieur Laurent, I saw Amelie lingering by the register before closing. It seemed strange to me at the time." Amelie turned to her, stunned. "Claire, what are you saying?" "I was checking a customer's bill as usual. You were the one who asked me to close the register tonight." "I did," Claire replied coolly. "But apparently, you closed not only the register, but also the cash in your pocket." Amelie's cheeks flushed crimson. A lump of hurt and indignation rose in her throat. Her hands trembled as she gripped the damp cloth she'd been using to wipe tables. "I didn't take anything," she finally managed, meeting the manager's gaze. "That's what they all say." He cut her off, eyes narrowing. "Good customer reviews don't mean you're incapable of stealing. Every thief once had a clean record." Her voice quivered. She looked helplessly at her colleagues. Two waiters who had finished their shifts stood by the wall exchanging uneasy glances. One of them, the cook Antoine, spoke up timidly. "Monsieur Laurent, maybe this is a misunderstanding? Amelie has never given anyone a reason to doubt her honesty." "You're telling me what to do now?" the manager snapped, and Antoine immediately fell silent. "You want me to check? I already did. The money's gone, and the person on duty is responsible." "Which means Amelie." Claire nodded solemnly. "It's unpleasant, of course, but rules are rules." Amelie stared between the furious manager and Claire's coldly satisfied expression, her heart pounding wildly. Just minutes ago she'd been wiping tables, thinking about calling her parents, and now she was being accused of theft. She took a shaky breath and tried to steady her voice. "Monsieur Laurent, I'm ready to help figure this out. Maybe the money really is missing, but I didn't take it. We should check the security footage or recount the receipts in the morning." "Cameras, you say?" the manager exploded, slamming his fist on the counter. "You think I won't check? I will tomorrow. But for now, either you return the money, or we'll have to call the police." The word police hung in the air like a thunderclap. Amelie turned pale. They were serious about handing her over as a criminal. She had never been anywhere near such disgrace in her life. Her eyes burned with unshed tears, but no, she couldn't cry. She gripped the cloth so hard that water dripped onto the floor. Then Sophie, the senior waitress and Amelie's closest friend at work, stepped forward. "Monsieur Laurent, please don't rush to call the police," she said firmly. "Let's sort this out first. Maybe it's a mistake, a technical glitch, something like that." The manager was about to snap at her too, but his gaze suddenly shifted toward the doorway. A middle-aged man in a tailored suit entered the hall with brisk steps. Monsieur Duval, the owner of the restaurant chain. The employees immediately recognized him. He occasionally visited his flagship restaurant in person, but no one expected him so late. His expression was troubled. "What's going on here?" he asked quietly but clearly, scanning the room. Monsieur Laurent straightened up at once. "Good evening, Monsieur Duval. We have an emergency. A large sum has gone missing from the register, and unfortunately, all evidence points to one employee." He nodded toward Amelie. She stood pale, lips pressed tightly together, trying to hold herself upright. "Monsieur Duval," Claire interjected quickly, seizing the chance to take control, "the shortage was discovered during Amelie's shift, and we have every reason to believe she's responsible." "Exactly," the manager added eagerly. "A very unpleasant incident." We were just getting to the bottom of it. Amelie's colleagues exchanged uneasy looks. Sophie took a breath, ready to speak up again, but Monsieur Duval raised a hand for silence. I've heard enough, he said calmly. Now I want to hear Amelie's side. The young woman looked up at the owner. Her eyes shimmered, but she had composed herself. Her voice was quiet yet firm. Monsieur Duval, I didn't take the money, but I know that it's been disappearing. The room felt utterly silent. Even the air felt heavy. Monsieur Duval raised an eyebrow. You say you know about the missing money? Amelie nodded. She could feel her coworker's uneasy stares behind her and saw, out of the corner of her eye, the manager's face go pale with anger. He had expected tears and denial. Not this. Yes, I know, Amelie repeated clearly. And I've known for weeks now that money has been disappearing from this restaurant. And not because of me. What nonsense! Monsieur Laurent burst out, but the owner silenced him with a gesture. Go on, Amelie, he said gently. Explain what you mean. Amelie took a steadying breath. This was the moment of truth. Weeks ago, when she first noticed inconsistencies in the reports, she began keeping her own records in a small notebook. That very notebook was now in her bag. She stepped toward the administrator's counter and pulled out a thin, worn notebook with a green cover. Claire and Monsieur Laurent looked at it as if it were a snake. Monsieur Duval adjusted his glasses and leaned closer. These are my notes and calculations, Amelie said calmly, opening the notebook to a page filled with columns of numbers. I graduated from university with a degree in finance and accounting. When I started working here, I couldn't help noticing some irregularities. She flipped through several neatly written pages. For example, Amelie pointed. This is the register income for last Monday, the 24th, when I and 2 other waiters were on shift. The income and kitchen expenses balance perfectly. She looked up at Monsieur Duval. But the next day, the 25th, my shift ended at 6 p.m. After that, Claire and Monsieur Laurent stayed until closing. According to the documents, that night's revenue was suspiciously low, almost half of what it usually is on that weekday, with the same number of guests. The owner frowned and bent over the notebook, following the lines. I noticed these drops in revenue on certain days and began checking more closely. I even kept copies of several receipts from the 25th that I happened to find by the register. 2 of them were for large amounts, but they were never recorded in the final report. Meaning the guests did pay, but the money never reached the cash register. Maureen blushed deeply. She could have drawn them by hand, forged them if she wanted. And anyway, it wasn't her job. Checking reports wasn't part of her duties. Olga met her outraged look calmly. You're right, it isn't. But since you decided to accuse me of theft, I had to investigate. And I did. She turned her gaze to the owner. Monsieur Victor Paul, I'm sure this isn't the first time money has gone missing. Over the past month, shortages have occurred at least 4 times. Always in the evenings, when Marine Victorine and Nicolas Pierre closed the cash register alone. The missing sums weren't large, so earlier it might have gone unnoticed, but they were adding up. And today apparently these 2 decided to pocket a bigger amount and blame it all on me. How dare you? Shouted Nicolas Pierre, his face turning crimson. Marine flared up too. Girl, who's going to believe you with your scribbles? Monsieur Victor Paul, how can you even listen to this nonsense? Victor Paul raised his hand, and both accusers instantly fell silent. The owner shifted his gaze from their agitated faces to the calm, focused Olga. The young woman was still standing with her notebook open, trying to maintain her composure, though inside she trembled from the tension. The silence dragged on for a painfully long few seconds. Finally, the restaurant owner spoke quietly. Monsieur Nicolas Pierre, Mademoiselle Marine Victorine, I think it's time we all went to my office and carefully compared the facts. The manager opened his mouth as if to argue but fell silent under the heavy gaze of his employer. Marine bit her lip. Victor Paul removed his glasses and continued dryly. However, even now I can say this, I'm astonished. Astonished, first, by the unforgivable haste with which you accused an employee without sufficient grounds, and second, by the composure and professionalism of this young woman. He looked directly at Olga, and a faint smile flickered in his warm, stern eyes. Olga, you've been working here as a waitress for only a couple of months, right? And yet you managed to conduct an analysis that even my accountants sometimes fail to perform." Olga blushed and nodded silently. Her colleagues exchanged glances behind her, faces full of admiration and relief. Katia clasped her hands to her chest, barely containing her joy. Meanwhile, Victor Paul straightened up and continued, "I owe you an apology, Olga," he said clearly and firmly. "You have proven your honesty and at the same time, shown remarkable financial insight. Your integrity and dignity cannot go unrewarded." Tears welled up in Olga's eyes, this time from relief. She exhaled as if after a long run. Nicolas Pierre stood with his head down. Marine's face grew paler by the second. "Monsieur Nicolas Pierre," the owner addressed him quietly, "you and Mademoiselle Marine Victorine will submit your resignations today. And tomorrow the police may wish to speak with you, after the full audit I am about to order." The administrator inhaled sharply but didn't dare object or even look at Victor Paul. Nicolas Pierre simply lowered his shoulders. To the two guards who had stepped closer, Victor Paul nodded. "Escort these two and make sure they don't touch any documents until the investigation is complete." When the disgraced pair had left, the owner turned back to Olga. The girl stood clutching her notebook to her chest like a shield. "Thank you for your trust," she whispered. "It's I who should thank you," Victor Paul shook his head, "for saving my money and my faith in people. I'm glad I learned the truth before making a terrible mistake." He stepped closer and lightly touched her shoulder. "I see you are a person of strong moral principles and great ability. With such qualities, you shouldn't be wasting away as a waitress." Olga didn't immediately grasp the meaning of his words. Victor Paul smiled. "I'm offering you a position as financial control manager in my restaurant chain. Essentially, an internal auditor who ensures the honesty of reports and the security of the company's income. I'm sure your sharp eye and analytical mind make you perfect for the job." Olga froze, unable to believe her ears. Behind her came a murmur of delighted whispers. Her colleagues barely held back cheers. I don't know what to say," Olga stammered. "I don't even have real experience. I only just graduated." "Don't worry," Victor Paul replied. "Experience will come. What matters most is honesty, intelligence, and the desire to work, and you have plenty of all three. So I hope you'll accept my offer." Olga felt tears rising again. She met Katia's eyes. Her friend silently clapped her hands in joy. The others looked on warmly, proud of her. The young woman straightened up and said firmly, "Yes, Monsieur Victor Paul. I accept. Thank you so much for your trust and for your fairness." The owner nodded in satisfaction, then turned to the remaining staff. "My friends, I apologize for this turbulent evening, but know this: justice has prevailed, and those who work honestly will always have my support." Olga's colleagues nodded. Soft murmurs of joy and approval filled the room. Someone started clapping hesitantly, then others joined louder and louder. Olga blushed scarlet, but at that moment, no one in the room was happier than she.